Good morning, Europe. It's Friday, the 1st of June. Our headlines for you. Trade war triggered. Washington fires the first shot in what could be a damaging battle between the U.S. and its key allies. It's a deal. In an 11th hour push for power, Italy's populist parties form a government. But can it hold? Plus, over in the Cube, our social media news desk.
Tragedy or comedy? We've been speaking to Italians about what they make of the country's unfolding political drama. That's in All Voices.
On the way out, Spain's government is on the brink of collapse as Prime Minister Rajoy faces a no-confidence vote. And extreme measures. Women swallow abortion pills in Northern Ireland to protest strict anti-abortion laws. Thank you for starting your day with us. Now, we begin with political and economic anxiety on three fronts, all of which are dominating Europe this morning. So first, we have that trade war with the United States. Then we have a shaky political agreement in Italy, which is Europe's third largest economy. And then in Spain, we have a no-confidence vote, which could see the prime minister out the door. But we begin with that trade battle and the strong reaction from the EU.
It's totally unacceptable that a country is imposing unilateral measures when it comes to world trade.
That's the European Commission president after a decision by U.S. President Donald Trump late yesterday, damaging tariffs of 25% on steel and aluminum from Europe, Canada and Mexico, measures the U.S. president says are necessary to protect national security. Well, Germany stands to be one of the hardest hit countries in Europe, and that's where we find a correspondent, Jessica Saltz. Jessica, let's talk about these tariffs. What are they?
Well, the United States has announced that from today it will be imposing tariffs on steel and aluminium imports from the European Union, Canada and Mexico. And this will be a 25% tax on steel and 10% on aluminium, both of which are very heavily used in manufacturing across the United States. So this is going to be a real financial blow to these international producers. And we have heard a fair amount of outcry from international leaders and political leaders and industry leaders. German Chancellor Angela Merkel, very careful to avoid using the term trade war, has said that this could lead to a spiral of escalation if this trade dispute continues. The EU Trade Commissioner Cecilia Malmström has said that she plans to bring a case to the World Trade Organization against these tariffs, saying that the US is not playing by international rules. So there are big concerns in Europe about how this will affect industry here, but also what this means for the reliability of the US as a trade partner moving forward.
All right, and Germany stands to be hit quite badly, but how bad will the damage be, do you think?
Big worries for German industry. 10% of German exports go to the United States, and also it's their top country for foreign direct investment. And one of the top industries from Germany that is investing in the United States is the car industry. Now, the car industry will be affected in the United States with its production because they import a lot of their steel and aluminium from the European Union. So they will be affected by these tariffs. But there's also concerns domestically about Donald Trump putting tariffs on exports of cars from Germany to the United States. Volker Trier, head of foreign trade at the German Chamber of Commerce, explains to me why this would really escalate the trade dispute.
We have to do anything and everything to avoid a trade war. We would speak about a trade war if there would be the imposition of duties on cars, and at the same time new tariffs between China and US, because then it affects really large trade volumes.
So real concerns here in Germany about these tariffs that have been imposed today on steel and aluminium, but also bigger concerns about where this is heading.
Thank you for that, Jessica Saltz, live for us in Berlin. Well, the U.S. says this is to protect national security, while the French president says it's a threat to international security. Alistair Sanford joins me now in the studio to help break it down. Alistair, remind us why Trump is doing this. What is his strategy?
Well, Tessa, we've long heard the rhetoric, but this really is now Trump's economic nationalism being put into practice. He's long said that foreign imports and overcapacity globally has been hitting U.S. industry and U.S. jobs. Earlier this year, a Trump administration investigation found that this overcapacity and the volume of imports in steel and aluminium coming into the US was a threat to their national security. His supporters have also said that the world has been far too lax on China, and so we need to take action against the whole world. This has brought howls of protest, as we've been hearing, not just in Europe and other affected countries like Canada and Mexico, but in the US itself. Their industry figures are saying that this is going to have a counterproductive effect, that it's going to hit our supply chains, it's going to hit our jobs, it's going to hit US exports. This sort of blanket protectionism is what led to the Great Depression. Those are the words of a Republican member of Congress. Now, among EU leaders, no one's done more to try to woo the US president than the French president, Emmanuel Macron. Yet his condemnation of the US move has been fairly explicit. Let's take a look at his reaction, what he's been saying to this. I think that this decision is not only illegal, but is also a mistake in several ways, because it addresses the international and worldwide imbalance which exists in the world's worst way by dividing and bringing economic trade nationalism. And then with this warning, that is what leads to war. That's exactly what happened in the 1930s.
Yeah, but Alistair, let's remember that these are his allies. So what will happen to political relations? It's already strained over Iran, over climate change. What then?
Exactly, yes. It looks bad because Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord and the Iran nuclear deal recently. What can make him change course? This arguably shows the limits of the Macron approach. And this morning I've heard Trump's former communications chief saying if people think that Trump is sensitive to flattery, they don't understand how he operates. It's really back to the drawing board.
All right, thank you for that, Alistair Sanford. Now, there's a political truce in Italy, albeit shaky. The two anti-establishment parties have agreed on a coalition cabinet ending months of political turmoil. It means a populist government is back in, and that technocratic government announced earlier this week is out. Law professor Giuseppe Conte has presented his list of ministers to President Mattarella after receiving his second mandate in 8 days. The breakthrough came after the leaders of the League and Five Star Movement agreed to drop the Eurosceptic economist Paolo Savona as their choice for economy minister. Five-star leader Luigi Di Maio will be industry minister, while League leader Matteo Salvini becomes interior minister. Well, to make sense of all of this, I'm joined now by Alan Friedman, an American journalist and author based in Tuscany. Good to have you with us today. Alan, can this deal hold?
Well, the Italian government will be sworn in at 4 o'clock this afternoon, Italian time. And yes, I think this government of populists, demagogues, Eurosceptic and anti-immigrant will hold, and we will now find out what it means to have the first real Trump-like government in one of Europe's biggest economies. Will they go against Europe, or will they calm down? Will they engage in radical economic policies that blow a hole in Italy's finances, or will they be more pragmatic? We will find out.
I mean, those are really the questions, aren't they? So now there's a sigh of relief because the prospect of a snap election is gone, but they can still clash with Europe.
Absolutely. And the fact that Paolo Savona, the controversial anti-Euro economist who was blocked by the president of Italy from becoming treasury minister, has now been shifted over and snuck through the back door in as European affairs minister, is like an insult to Europe. Paolo Savona has talked about leaving the euro as a plan B, leaving the single currency. Now, that may not happen, and Italy will stay in the single currency, but they've also promised over 100 billion euros of spending plans. So clearly, we have to find out whether these inexperienced demagogues will get pragmatic or will keep up their anti-euro rhetoric and their spending plans.
Yeah, so what are the risks that you are closely watching that could risk an explosion again?
Well, look at it this way. Right now, the markets, financial markets, have calmed after being spooked and worried about Italy and after an Italian bond sell-off. But if a new government gives indications that it's really going to create a flat tax that drives a hole through the budget and creates a deficit of 50 billion euros a year, or if they try to undo pension reform that costs 200 billion euros, if they do these kind of irresponsible things, the financial markets will come in, the ratings agencies will downgrade Italy debt to junk bond status. And at that point, not even Mario Draghi and his quantitative easing can save Italy if they get downgraded to junk bond status. So we're going to have to see between now and the autumn if this new government is more responsible or more crazy.
All right, indeed. This story far from over. Thank you for that, Alan Friedman. Well, Italy's leaders may have come up with a consensus, but the conversation is far from over. There's a lot going on in social media, and Belle has been talking to some Italians, Belle.
Yes, Tessa. Now, we all know that Twitter gets political fast, and nowhere have we seen this more than in Italy over the last few weeks. Italians are incredibly politically engaged online. Now, here at theCUBE, we've been speaking to those voices. Over the last few weeks, we've seen the leaders of two competing political parties choose Facebook to release their video messages, not traditional media. Some of those messages receiving upward of 4 million viewers. Now compare that to the about 300,000 people who buy Italy's largest selling newspaper, and you get the picture. This is a political story that is playing out online. We've been speaking to Italians. I'm going to play you some of the Italians we've been speaking to. This is all part of our commitment to all voices. We want to hear all views. First of all, here's Massimiliano from Bolano in northern Italy.
Although the situation in Italy doesn't make me happy, I'm not surprised. Italy and Italians are in a crisis which is structural and cultural, not only political. The country has been failing to create a decent political class for decades, so we cannot expect anything different.
Now, remember, there have been 65 different governments in Italy since World War II. This story is not new for Italians. Here we go, from London, this is Virginia, an Italian.
It is a complicated situation where it seems that who is more able to oversimplify things gets to win.
And we've got Daniele from Milan, who is... Here we go.
I think that the political situation here in Italy is a middle ground between a Black Mirror episode and a comedy film.
There we go. 3 different Italians from different parts of the country. What do you think about what is getting you talking? Let us know. All voices, #TheCube.
Thank you for that, Belle and the team. Thanks. Now, Bill Browder is speaking out after his arrest and release in Spain this week. The well-known Russia critic says he will continue his mission to hold corrupt politicians accountable. Browder live tweeted his brief detention in Spain on Wednesday on a Russian warrant related to tax fraud before being abruptly released. Well, I spoke with him yesterday. Do you feel like you always have a target on your back?
I feel like they're coming after me in all sorts of different ways. There is a target on my back. There's a target on my front.
Now, if you want to watch my full conversation with him, you can find it online. That's at euronews.com. Now, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang ahead of leader Kim's planned summit with President Trump later this month. In a joint press conference, the two leaders announced that Russia and North Korea will hold their own bilateral summit later this year. It comes amid continued efforts from the U.S. to get their planned summit with North Korea back on track. And still to come for you on Good Morning Europe, Spanish Prime Minister Rajoy remains defiant in the face of a no-confidence vote that could force him out of office. We have the latest from Spain. And frustration turns to anger in Belfast over Northern Ireland's restrictive abortion law. Our correspondent is there. But first, here's your weather. Watching Good Morning Europe, welcome back. Trading blows. A global trade war looms as the EU, Canada and Mexico hit back at the U.S. for imposing steel and aluminium tariffs on them. President Trump says the measures are in America's national interest. The EU says we're allies, not adversaries. The Prime Minister of Spain is facing a no-confidence vote today, which could bring down his government. Now, the vote comes after a day of debate in the country's parliament. At issue, a huge corruption scandal surrounding Prime Minister Rajoy's political party. But inside parliament yesterday, Rajoy was notably absent. Hours later, Rajoy emerged from a nearby restaurant to a crush of reporters and amid swirling questions about just what he was doing there during such an important political debate on what could be his last night in power. And for more on this, I'm joined by the Deputy Director of El País newspaper, David Alandete. David, thanks for joining us this morning. So for Mariano Rajoy, will he survive this no-confidence vote today?
No, there's no chance that he can survive this. It's been a tough week for the Prime Minister of Spain. And a piece of information that I have from yesterday, I know that his team is already packing. So that's the level of confidence that they have in the fact that he can survive it now.
All right, so if he's on his way out, then who's coming in?
Well, Pedro Sanchez, the socialist leader, he actually tried an initiative in parliament to unseat the prime minister. He's only got 80 seats. And bear in mind, he's not in parliament right now. He resigned. But then he came back to the leadership of the Socialist Party, and he's going to try a government. He's going to be supported by every other party except for the right and the center-right.
All right, so are we going to see him in position for long, or are we going to go into elections?
That's a really good question. He's not going to last long. I mean, he has 80 seats out of 300 and something, you know, like it's the smallest majority, if you will, that the parliament has seen. And it's not even the majority, it's the second party, but 80 seats, impossible. In the good old times of bipartisanship in Spain, the opposition party could have 120, 130. Now with 80, chances are he's not going to last even like a couple of months.
Now, extraordinary scenes in Northern Ireland where campaigners have been swallowing illegal abortion pills. The high-impact protest was against the region's restrictive laws on abortion. It came a week after the Republic of Ireland voted in favor of liberalizing their laws. Northern Ireland will be the last place in either the UK or Ireland where abortion is mostly illegal. Our correspondent Vincent McAviney is live in Belfast with the latest. Vincent, can you tell us what happened yesterday?
Well, good morning from Belfast, Tessa. That's right. Yesterday, joined a group of campaigners who had a very unique form of direct protest against this ban.
Not the church, not the state! Women must decide their fate!
Outside a Belfast courthouse yesterday, campaigners, some dressed in Handmaid's Tale-style outfits, gathered to protest the country's abortion ban. As well as the 3 women a day who have to travel overseas, at least 2 in Northern Ireland take safe but illegal abortion pills bought off the internet, risking a life sentence in prison. In an act of defiance, this drone is being controlled by a Dutch doctor. It delivers a pack of these pills before some of the campaigners take them in full view of the police.
1, 2, 3, 4! We won't take it anymore!
Why did you just take these pills?
I just took this pill to highlight the reality. To highlight the reality of the situation in Northern Ireland. Women are using these every day.
The women are stopped and questioned.
Waiting for our lawyer. We'll give reactions after that.
After a few moments, they're allowed to continue. But the pills and the drone are confiscated. The protesters here and the handmaids are getting onto this bus, and they'll be travelling across Northern Ireland to distribute more of these pills. All the time, though, they've been under the eye of the police officers. They've been here in quite strong numbers for what is a relatively small protest. Northern Ireland's biggest political party, the DUP, object to any changes to the abortion laws here. Whilst these protesters may only be filling one bus, campaigners like Gráinne Taggart say repealing the ban would be popular.
The DUP are out of step with where their own electorate are on this issue, because those who identify as unionist, marginally more than those who identify as nationalist, also want to see this changed. So they're not reflecting their constituents' views on this matter. There is strong support amongst political parties, but of course we haven't had a devolved government for 16 months now. So it's really all eyes on the UK government, who we would call on now to urgently act.
But Paul Given, who was a DUP minister here before the suspension of the Stormont Assembly, is unequivocal on his party's position.
The UK has an appalling record when it comes to protecting the human rights of the unborn child. The 1967 Act has left a legacy of now over 9 million unborn children having lost their lives, and that's not something we here in Northern Ireland want to have. We believe we provide the right balance in protecting both the rights of the unborn and the rights of the mother.
The DUP holding firm on their position against any changes to abortion law here at the Parliament in Stormont. But whilst it may be getting deliveries, it can't actually deliver any changes to any laws because it's been suspended for over a year. So the Westminster government may now step in. And I'm hearing from sources in London that next week in the House of Commons we may see the first moves, an opposition day debate, which could then lead to an amendment on the domestic violence bill, which would mean legalising legalisation of abortion in Northern Ireland against the DUP's wishes. That may collapse Theresa May's government deal with them.
All right, thank you for that, Vincent McAviney reporting there. And still to come for you on Good Morning Europe, remember this iconic movie location? Well, in a minute, find out why it's gone. But first, your weather. You're watching Good Morning Europe. Welcome back. Now, theCUBE has a story that you might have missed, but if you are a film lover, a sun seeker, you want to hear this. Bill.
Yeah, absolutely. If you are a film lover, remember this. I certainly do. Leonardo DiCaprio breaking millions of girls' hearts in The Beach in Thailand, on that paradise. But just as in the film, everything turned sour, so it has in real life. The beach has seen so many tourists, which brings the parties, which means this. That's now the reality of the beach. It's been so bad that the coral has been affected, as has the beach life as well. And the National Parks Environment have decided it's time to close the beach. It'll be closed temporarily initially whilst people try and allow the coral life to recover. If you were planning a trip on to the beach, don't worry, you will be able to do so when they reopen it to 2,000 people a day.
All right, thank you for that, Belle. And thank you for joining us on Good Morning Europe. And do stay with Euronews. In the meantime, we'll leave you with today's no comment from Spain, where Prime Minister Rajoy appeared relaxed on the eve of a vote of no confidence. If he loses, he's out of office.